So this is what we call the proto-evangelium, this message that's given to the serpent. Why is it? Because it's said to be the first gospel, the first presentation of the gospel in the text of Scripture. Okay, so we're only on chapter 3, and now we got the gospel here. The Lord said to the serpent, "Because you have done this, cursed are you among all animals and all wild creatures. Upon your belly you shall go, and dust you shall eat all the days of your life. I will put hostility between you and the woman, between your seed and her seed. He will crush your head, and you will crush his heel." Okay? Particularly this part right here is that really, really famous passage. So the term for seed there, Zerah, God declares war between the offspring of the woman and the offspring of the serpent. Throughout the Old Testament, the seed is repeatedly referred to as the line of those who will receive the blessing of God through his covenants, from Abraham to David. So the offspring of the woman will crush the serpent. Okay? There's going to be hostility between the offspring of the woman and the offspring of the serpent, and the offspring of the woman will crush the serpent. Not just the serpent's offspring, the serpent. Okay? So who is the seed of the serpent? So we have this rival offspring, the seed of Eve. We have Abel and Cain. We have all of the nations, and we have Jesus and the people that he's surrounded by. The seed of the serpent, we have the powers of darkness, the gods of the nations, the devil and his angels, demigods and demons, right? So the idea here is that by following the serpent and the gods of the nations, by doing the will of the serpent, humans align themselves with the serpent and become the seed of the serpent, liable to his cause. So there's plenty of examples of this, just in the Gospels in particular. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites, you snakes, you offspring of vipers. How will you escape being condemned to hell? And so upon you will come all the righteous blood that has been shed on the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah. 1 John chapter 3, we should not be like Cain, who was of the evil one and murdered his brother. John chapter 8, you belong to your father, the devil, and want to carry out your father's desires. So the physical people are those who align themselves with the serpent. The seed of Eve is those of humanity, or excuse me, the seed of the serpent are those in humanity who take on the evil one as their father. This should hopefully answer your question. This offspring of the serpent, right? It's those who take the serpent as their father, right? In an adoptive sense. And also those powers and principalities that follow the humans and the angelic host who follow the serpent, as opposed to not. So the promised serpent crusher. God proclaims that the offspring of Eve will crush the head of the serpent while being struck on the heel. Okay? Some people take this to minimize the striking on the heel. No, the idea is they're both fatal attacks. Okay? What happens if you get bit by a snake on the heel? You die, right? So the idea here is that they will both kill each other simultaneously. And that's what's happening on the cross. You see what I'm saying? Christ is defeating death. Being God, he comes back again, but he defeats death and sin and the serpent while undergoing the death himself. It is through the death that he defeats the Lord of Death. Okay? This is why it's called the proto-evangelium, because it's the idea that humanity will birth the offspring, the child of Eve, the descendant of Eve, will be the one who crushes. So you guys did not crush the serpent, but someone will come who will. So we're going to follow this line of descendants of the child of Eve all the way to Matthew chapter 1, okay? Where Jesus shows up on the scene, all the way to the end of the Gospels, each of the Gospels, where he crushes the serpent underfoot, okay? And then Paul says of the believers, you all crush serpents under your feet. Paul says in the New Testament, by the work of Jesus, okay? Pretty cool. So you can see, so again, you crushing the serpent under your feet means that when you encounter that moment of the garden where the serpent is whispering at your ear, you crush the serpent. You have the power to crush the serpent's head. God's world was made to be good, and we were made to be good humans in it. Now, awakened to their own vulnerability and exiled from the garden, Adam and Eve will experience a life that ultimately results in dust. You guys already pointed it out, though. God provides something. It's a great moment when it says, God made them garments of skin to replace their fig leaves, right? So Adam and Eve replaced their fig leaves with a garment made by God himself. This garment, secured through death, will protect them in the wilderness beyond the garden. Isaiah chapter 61, he has clothed me with garments of salvation. He has covered me with the robe of righteousness. So the nakedness is the uncovering. Now they need to be covered, right? With a garment made by God. What is that garment? Paul says, put on Christ. Put on Christ, right? With the robe of righteousness, as a bridegroom decks himself up like a priest with a beautiful headdress, and as a bride adorns herself with jewels. And I just love that. I love the image of God gifting something to them. Grace means gift, and there is grace presented. So you have the proto-evangelium of the one from the offspring of Eve will crush the serpent, and then you have the gift of God that will provide for them in the state of decay, in the age of decay. God created Adam in the dry land and placed him in the garden, and now they are exiled from that garden. Jesus says in Revelation, to the one who conquers, I will grant to eat the tree of life, which is in the garden of God. So the idea here is that, and I read that church father quote last week about this idea that Jesus says to the thief, today you will be with me where? In paradise, which is the Greek word for garden, right? So we do return to that garden. At present, we are in the garden, spiritually speaking, right? And so this is a very, very complex aspect of theology and doctrine that we'll have to get into as we get later on in the Bible about what Christ secures for us. As Paul says, you are seated in heaven with Jesus, right? At the present. So now as believers, we have 1 foot in the age of the decay and 1 foot in eternity, right? Now and not yet. It's more officially called the doctrine of now and not yet. Yeah. I want to end on this psalm. I believe that I shall see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord. And of course, that is what that Genesis 3:15, he will crush, the offspring of evil crush the serpent. Now it's throughout the whole Old Testament, because the New Testament is that serpent crusher comes. The whole Old Testament is the waiting, the anticipation for the Messiah, anointed one, the one who will come to crush the serpent.